All right, let's give it we'll do it till 6:35. All right, it is 6:35, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I will try to keep my eye on the waiting room. And for those of you that didn't already hear, this is being recorded. Just want everyone to know that they are on candid camera. We like to post this after the fact on the YouTube channel so that people who missed can watch it. And let me get my screen shared. No, I'm not 100% sure that I can see the waiting room while I'm sharing. Wonder if I can delegate that to someone else.
I see it.
Are you able to let people in if they're waiting?
Oh, I thought you asked if you could see the presentation.
Sorry, I can't see the waiting room anymore in case people are signing on.
Alyssa, how about if we trade and I present the slides?
Be awesome. I'll stop
And
right
I can
now. You can
try.
go. Yeah, you can go ahead and present.
That'll work.
Thank you.
But
It occurred to me some people might join late.
See if the share will work. Okay, is that showing the slide?
It
Okay.
is. I see
Yeah.
it. Thank you.
Now I can't see anything else, so I'll take no responsibility for the.
I know that was the conundrum. I am going to get this kicked off because I don't want to take up too much of anyone's time. Basically, we're going to run through this slideshow. I'm hoping that it won't be too awful long. Leave plenty of time for questions and comments. Go ahead and hit the next slide, Adam. Yeah, so we'll have time for Q&A at the end. If you do have a burning question, you can hit the raise hand button if you want. I don't guarantee that we will see it right away, but we will leave time at the end for sure. First, we're going to kind of go through the structure of the organization, the current structure, and move into budget risk and some updates on Block 67 and the partnership. My name is Alyssa Shore. For those of you that don't know me, I am currently the president, and you'll see a little bit about that on the next few slides. Go for it, Adam.
Oops.
And I just wanted to take a minute to introduce our new board of director appointees. The first is Natalie Lynn, and the second is Mark Grambo. Hit the next slide for me real quick. I wanted to mention that you guys probably noticed we did not end up having elections. Part of that is because you can kind of see that we don't have a full board at this time, and we had much fewer applicants than vacancies on the board. And because we were so short-staffed, we decided not to do the elections and just appoint the applicants who we found to be qualified. And I know that is unconventional to skip the elections, and we certainly Don't hope to do that again if possible. And, you know, there's still time to do it. Should we be able to get some more applicants involved? But I did want to address that because I know some of you were probably wondering, like what happened there? Why didn't we see anything? Just being very shorthanded, it was difficult for us to pull off. So that is the explanation behind that. And I believe, Adam, that is this your slide? Sorry.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so you can go ahead and take it away.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I'm Adam Samantel, and I just share here kind of briefly the state of the board and the state of the organization. I'm going to jump to the next slide. And you can see we're going to look at kind of like the committees and teams and stuff. So it's just these two slides. So the board of directors, like Alyssa just said, is supposed to be 11 seats. We've got 8 right now. You've got the little stick people on the bottom with the solid blue heads. That's the 6 board members that are, with some tenure. And then we've got Mark and Natalie literally just starting up this month. So 2 new and then 3 open. And what we ask and want each board member to fulfill an officer position, which is the right-hand side there with the president, the treasury, the secretary. And then we also want, a successor alternate board member pairing up on those. And then we want board members to chair committees and teams and among, just general help. So it is a bit thin right now in terms of the total board capacity. And then just looking at it at kind of a really high level for the whole organization, we've got on the bottom part of this slide, the outreach team, communications community team, which is the market booth team that would, be attending the Saturday market. Then the capital campaign committee, the partnership committee, those have the 2 solid stick people because those have chairs. The other teams with the dotted lines, those are currently, there's no leader or chair for those groups. Similar for the grant writing and the fundraising. And then we do have site selection and business, but those are a bit paused because of the partnership. So that's not really a gap. But you do see a lot of dotted line people here, and that's kind of a problem for us for staffing. And then on the top part of this slide, these are just 3 examples, but the outreach and volunteer coordinator, which used to be Roberta, and Roberta moved to Washington, even though she's here in the meeting. Good, that's great. But when Roberta left, the board decided not to continue to put budget into that position right away. And then we did do some expenses on legal and on campaign coaching. But right now, neither of those are active either. So we've got kind of a funding gap happening at the same time for the professional consulting services that we would want to have active right now and supporting us. So that's just kind of, just want to give people the sense of the whole business and also like where we have gaps and that things are a little thin on the board and on the different committees and teams right now. So that's a little bit of a change in the last, I don't know, year or 18 months. It seems like things have kind of gotten to this situation now. On the funding part, I'm going to go ahead to the next slide, and Aaron, I think you'll update on the budget and cash and stuff. Okay, thanks.
Hi, I'm Erin Rabachi. This is my first, not even a full year yet. So this is my first annual meeting. Nice to meet you all. I've taken over for Toby as the treasurer. And so in 2023, we ended the year with a little under $37,000 in total assets. 26,000 of that is cash on hand. The rest is sort of, equity and floating stuff in there. We gained 37 members in 2023. One of those was sponsored and 27 paid in full, with the remaining 9 on payment plans. We did have some large expenses with very little fundraising and income coming in. So we ended the year, excuse me, with a negative $19,000 in net income. With the $26,000 cash on hand, we do have enough sort of float to operate for another year, assuming nothing changes. But we really do want things to change. We're really hoping to gain some momentum here, get some uptick in our membership, as well as get on with some grants and some fundraising. If we're going to meet our 1,000 member goal, that's 80 new members for next year, so a little bit more than double. Just on their contributions, that'll be $16,000 in cash revenue. If our operating expenses, outreach, recruitment, and legal and campaign continue in the way that they did last year, we anticipate having roughly $16,500 in expenses. Next slide, please.
Is that a typo? It should say 2025. Is that, or 24? Was that a typo where it said
Oh,
2019?
yes, thank you. That should be 24.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to be sure. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, that's definitely a typo. Absolutely.
Okay.
So we have some financial and organizational capacity risks that we are looking, we're trying to get around for the upcoming years. Financial risks present while we continue through our development phase. So part of that is our cash burn just due to basic operations, known costs for our development items, legal stuff like that. And then limited income and ability to fundraise has kind of been an issue for us right now. Organizational capacity continues to be a challenge, as touched on by both Alyssa and Adam. We're low in volunteers for the board. We're low in volunteers to keep our day-to-day business going. We do need these guys to help us out for development in all areas. And our volunteer engagement has declined over the past few years, especially following the departure of our volunteer coordinator contractor.
And back to me, I think. So one of the things that we have been exploring, and we announced at last year's annual meeting, is a potential partnership. And that would be some type of joint business venture between Hillsborough Food Co-op and another company. And the one that was sort of on the horizon for us was called Fresh Foods, just to refresh your guys' memory. There is a couple more slides about that later on, so I'm not going to give you too much information. But essentially, we believe that would help a little bit to gain from their experience and kind of help us where we don't have as much capacity. Another couple things that are going to be very important, we believe, are a fiscal sponsor, and that is because most grants that are available are only available to nonprofit organizations. A co-op does not qualify in the eyes of the IRS as a nonprofit. So what most co-ops do is utilize a fiscal sponsor, which is sort of a middleman that receives the grants on the co-op's behalf. And this is a very well-established process. It's not anything shady, even though it might sound like it. They would receive the grants on behalf of the co-op. They would take a fee off the top and then pass on the funds to us. And then they're sort of responsible for tracking the expenses and ensuring that, we're spending the grant on what it would be intended for. So that is something that we're working towards, which could help inject some funding into the co-op. And that would, require the help of some volunteers to do some grant writing, especially for people that might have experience doing that. I know it can be somewhat of an arduous process to submit a lot of grants. So that would be something that we would be looking for, and a volunteer to just kind of spearhead that relationship between us and the fiscal sponsor. So a couple important things that we've been looking at, and really just, this second point to hammer home, energizing the existing ownership base to increase the interest in volunteering. We have a lot of ideas and possibilities out there, but we need hands on deck to execute those ideas. In that vein, we will have a volunteer interest event coming up on May 19th. So definitely watch your emails for more information about that. Watch the Facebook page. One of our awesome volunteers, Jessica Gilligan, is going to be putting in some work on that. She did a couple awesome events last year, so I'm definitely looking forward to this. it would definitely be something to attend if, you know, you just aren't even sure what type of volunteer opportunities are available, where your skills might fit in, or, you know, simply if you just want to talk to a couple of board members, get a little more information. Showing up doesn't mean that you're going to be locked into volunteering, but I think it's great to kind of learn about it, just because there's so many different skills, and you know, we might need just a couple hours here and there, or we might need someone that, you know, is interested in giving us 5 or 10 hours a week. So the opportunities are wide, and there's definitely a plethora of things that can be done. So as always, email the volunteers email address that you see on the screen now, or, you know, even a simple comment on like our Facebook page would also probably get a response. So any way that you can reach out would be super helpful. All right, next slide, please, Adam. All right, Michael, did you want to take this one, or do you want me to continue?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Can you hear me okay?
Awesome. Yep, we can hear you.
Very good. Hi all, Mike Shepard. I'm currently the chair of the partnership committee. Tim Farrell's also on the call today, and he preceded me as chair. So I absolutely invite him to jump in and pick up any areas where I may be off base or need some additional information. But you know, the status. I'm going to talk both about the partnership and the status of the potential site that we have been fairly focused on. We've been talking about Fresh Foods as a potential partner in development of a store for a couple of years now. Just as a reminder, Fresh Foods is a operator of grocery stores based in Manzanita. They have stores in Manzanita and excuse me, Cannon Beach, as well as up in Washington State. They are very interested in a partnership that would carry a Hillsborough Food Co-op branding in Hillsborough, and they were an identified partner with Rembold, which is the developer who was initially, excuse me, selected as the lead developer for the Block 67 project in downtown Hillsborough. So the co-op approached Fresh Foods with the idea of partnering on a store that would be significantly larger than the typical food co-op. So we would have the advantage of having a larger store and the expertise that in store operations that came with a partnership with Fresh Foods. Preliminarily, and nothing is set in stone yet, but the discussions have kind of focused on Fresh Foods having a slightly 51-49 voting rights advantage in a to-be-formed LLC that would run the store. The 49% would be owned by HFC, and we would do what we wish with any profits that were generated by the store, and Fresh Foods would do whatever they wished with their profits. So we would continue to operate Hillsborough Food Co-op in the manners that made sense, and then the development of the partnership agreement would speak to some of the specifics that certainly many members have been vocal about in terms of their desire to in terms of you know, the kinds of things that are offered at the store and the orientation of the store, and things like organic and farm, you know, local producers of food and those kinds of things. So those are all to be worked out elements of the discussion that have been kind of on the table from the beginning with the folks at Fresh Foods. So that's kind of an overview of the partnership. Tim, did I miss anything significant there?
No, I think you hit things well. You know, when we initiated the discussion with Fresh Foods, one of the reasons was when you looked at the mission and objectives of Hillsborough Food Co-op, and you look at the objectives of Fresh Foods in their corporate documents, they were very much aligned in terms of their focus on community and local suppliers and such. And so it continues to be an exciting opportunity.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing I would add to that, thank you, Tim, it would be that if the opportunities in terms of things to grocery store sites that to develop are fairly limited, and our feeling was that if we didn't enter into some sort of partnership arrangement, if we're able to enter into a successful partnership arrangement, that probably gives us a jump start in terms of getting a store open, which is heck the goal and has been for some time. In addition to that, we would not find ourselves in competition with another grocer in downtown Hillsborough, which would probably lead to, I don't know, one or both failing, quite frankly. So, there's an opportunity for a win-win, both in terms of expertise and store size and opportunity for success. Okay. So moving on to a little more detail. I think we've gone through this. So this is sort of some pluses and minuses. We're talking about a typical store, and that kind of store that we were originally focused on was more like a 7,000 square foot without partnership, following FCI guidelines for store opening. We'd have to find a location, renovate it, and no certainty around when that might happen, or what, and there's a whole lot of interesting challenges associated with finding a qualified staff to run a store and all those things. With a partnership, you're talking about a store that could be as much as 3 times as large. I think the most recent conversations maybe are a little more modest than the 20,000 foot approximation you see here in the blue. And then we've already talked about the expertise with Fresh Foods, who is closely tied with a distributor, a wholesale grocer organization that has a very significant organic food supply chain as well. We would have the opportunity to not only build off their expertise, but also their staffing, their ability to generate staffing, which I think sort of slides us into the conversation about the development piece of this. In the last year plus, our conversations had been with, our focus has been this Block 67, and we'll show you sort of graphically exactly what that means for those of you who are not following it as closely. It's been a project, a full city block that the city owns and is eager to see developed with, housing up above retail on a main level. There seems to be a strong consensus among the city and residents in that area that a grocer would be very important for the Block 67 project. I think most of you probably know that Block 67, the last tenant was a grocer at one time, a thriftway grocery store. So there isn't, there's not a full service grocer in that area. There's significant housing density, and in addition to the development that could happen in that site, which would include significantly more housing, and then you have proximity of hospitals and many service businesses where folks are looking for access to grocery in that area. The original partner that the Rembold that the city selected kind of has kind of faded into the woodwork, mostly as a result, frankly, of economic conditions that have been quite challenging to development, commercial development, including higher interest rates and availability of capital. Some of it's COVID related, some of it's sort of generally economic related, and then higher costs of materials to build and those kinds of things. So Rimbold reached the end of their exclusive period for submitting a development plan and getting sort of off the ground, and chose not to attempt to re-up their agreement with the city. And following shortly on the heels of that expiration of that exclusive period, another developer, Koz, K-O-Z, based in the Seattle area, but with extremely strong ties not only to Oregon but to Hillsborough specifically, stepped in and told the city, we're very interested in coming in and looking at a development. We were informed about that opportunity and that change in potential developers fairly early in the process, and it allowed us to engage engage more directly with the developer than we were able to in the past. The relationship kind of was more held by Fresh Foods. In the Rimbold situation, in the Koz situation, we were kind of the first mover in talking to Koz, who was very interested in not only a grocer but a food co-op influenced or food co-op partner in the project. We have subsequently had very good conversations with their principal, a woman named Kathy Reams, who grew up in Hillsborough and is very excited about this project. As a result, she has a lot of family in Hillsborough and is really wanting to make this happen. They have other developments in the Portland area as well. So, and they're particularly excited kind of about a more suburban development as opposed to some of the more urban developments they've had in Seattle or Portland, which have been challenged by, the interesting economic and political environments in the big cities themselves. So they're very excited about the project, and we've engaged with them well over the last quarter or so. And I can tell you that I did a little check-in with them today, and they indicated that they have submitted a kind of a umbrella proposal to the city. And they're kind of in what Kathy described to me as an exclusive review period, which she said was a good sign. So that's kind of the update of the partnership opportunity and kind of the development of the block.
Michael, just to add on to that, just for the rest of the attendees, when we met with Koz, Kathy had said that she was hoping to have that proposal in by the end of the month. So she's on track to what she wants to do. That's
correct. Yep. And the development, just for purposes of people kind of understanding, would be both apartment housing and senior apartment housing, sort of two kinds of apartment dwelling spaces, a few hundred units. And the square footage that's being discussed now is more like 13 to 15,000, not the 20 that's showing in the slide here, which was kind of the Rimbold Fresh Foods initial concept.
Adam, you want to hit the next slide real quick? I can speak on this a little bit since it's kind of we're going to kind of ease into a little more information on Block 67. But I did want to point out that regardless of whether or not we enter a partnership with Fresh Foods or anyone else, we still do need to raise money. And so that's an important part of why we still need volunteers. If HFC kind of has a hope of surviving at this point, we do need to get people involved and raise money. We can't take our initial steps with any of the professionals in terms of like legal, store design, et cetera, without significant cash on hand to make that happen. So the capital campaign, which is one of our subcommittees, is kind of looking at what is the manpower needed to do this, what are the tasks that we need to complete. And the number is pretty big. It's 2.5 million at this point, and of course that could flux. Prices are changing quickly right now, so unfortunately it could go up. But I think it's critical at this point that we realize talking about the partnership isn't necessarily a safety net where we don't have to do anything else. We don't need new volunteers. I think it's really important to point out that, you know, whether or not there's a partnership, the organization itself has right now kind of a critical health status, and we do need people involved because more people is going to equal more money, which is going to equal more progress. We're kind of at the point where if we can't get people involved, we can't raise that money, we are going to have a discussion about, is it time to fold our cards? So that's something I want you guys to keep in mind as owners. If you haven't been able to step up and volunteer, and certainly the people that have signed in, several of them are, you know, some of our committed volunteers, which thank you very much. But we do need more help always. We also hope to send out a survey in the near future, kind of covering some more of this partnership stuff. I feel like, you know, we had promised and hoped to send that out a little bit earlier, but being just so shorthanded, it just hasn't been able to happen yet. But we do want the opinion of the owners, how you guys feel about the partnership and the ideas of kind of getting into this Block 67 project. And certainly if we get positive feedback, it's going to be more direction for us to continue to pursue partnership avenues. If we get a lot of negative feedback, we might have to reevaluate, you know, what will we have to do as a standalone organization in order to survive. So when we are able to get that survey out, and I really hesitate to give you a date just because I don't want to miss it, but we are going to try to get that out as soon as we can, and it would be very helpful if you, your family, anyone you know that's an owner can fill that out. If you can encourage them to do that, that would be awesome. All right, next slide, Adam. This is just a visual covering some of the things that Michael was talking about. In case any of you are unfamiliar with the Block 67 site, and that's the one shown in yellow there. So you can kind of see it in relation to some of the more prominent landmarks downtown. It's kind of, you know, between 6th and 7th on Baseline. So it's a big block. It's a very central, conveniently located area. As you can see, it's close to public transportation. It's close to a lot of the housing that is in existence, but also being currently built. So it's a great location as far as the co-op is concerned and what we've been looking for. All right, next slide, please. And a lot of this information, this Block 67 update on this slide, has already been somewhat discussed verbally, but I just wanted to make sure it was written down and that we had all of the information here in case there's more questions. But as you guys probably know, Rembold was previously awarded the contract, which did include a grocery store with fresh foods, and that is why we approached them in particular about a partnership. But you know, due to a lot of circumstances, one of them being high cost, the project hasn't progressed, and the exclusivity period that Rembold had with the city has expired. So it doesn't mean that Rembold can't build, but they would have to resubmit some things in order to make that happen. But more importantly, what it does mean is that there's now an opportunity for other developers to put bids in on Block 67. So for us, that is exciting, because if Rembold has kind of shown right now that they've stalled out, you know, we hit a point where we couldn't go much further without direction from them. And despite them not being able to act on the development yet, Fresh Foods has always been enthusiastic in our discussions with them. So again, that's another like positive sign if the partnership is the way that we end up going. And then as Mike mentioned, Poe's Development is the other developer that has expressed a lot of interest to the city. They're in the process of doing their proposal. Luckily, because we engaged the conversation with them, we feel that, you know, HFC may be a little bit more in the driver's seat with this one, as we would kind of be bringing Fresh Foods to the table with us. One of the nice things about Co's, as Mike mentioned, is they do have a history of really community-driven projects. Some of them have been low income. Most of them have been multi-use projects. There's a couple in the Portland area that have been developed by Co's. And it's exactly the type of thing, the track record that I think that we would be looking for. They have actually attempted to work with food co-ops in the past. So like that desire is there. They're certainly interested in stuff that gives back to the community, And because of their Hillsborough roots, they're really interested in seeing, this succeed and be a for the community project, which is very exciting to me. And, the sort of sense that we've gotten from them is positive, and one that seems to be sort of reliable. Like they've kind of made up their mind that they want this, and they're taking the steps to go after it. So I think that, it would be a smart thing to kind of jump on this bandwagon with them, if we can. So that is the Block 67 update, which just kind of coattails into the partnership that Mike already discussed. Okay, and with that, Adam, I think the next slide is our closing slide. Yeah, so just kind of to wrap up, make sure you guys save the date for the volunteer interest event. Please come check it out if you have a chance. Let other owners know if you happen to run into them. And maybe even give a couple of our social media posts a share. We'll definitely be posting about this. So, if you can get some of the people in your circle or your network involved, that would be super awesome. One quick note before we go to questions, you can always email us at volunteers@Hillsborough Food Co-op, or info@Hillsborough Food Co-op if you have more general questions and inquiries. And if you are an owner that has, recently updated your phone, your email address, etc., definitely reach out to us at the accounts email, so that we can update our records. We want to make sure that when we reach out that we're getting the right contact information. With that, it's 7:10, so it looks like we've got about a good 20 minutes for those of you that want to add any questions, comments. I know we covered a lot pretty quickly, but it is a weeknight, so I don't want to keep you guys too late. But please feel free to. I think the best thing might be to raise your hand so we don't get people talking over each other too badly. But would love to hear from any of you if you guys have questions. And thank you for coming out. Anyone? Don't tell me we covered everything.
Seems like a
Kathy
thorough
posted it.
presentation.
Kathy Fuller posted Co's Development's website in case you're
Oh,
interested.
thank you,
in some
Kathy.
things that they have done.
Yeah, they do have a nice portfolio on their website.
It looks like Adam's raised his hand. Adam Sunshine.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can. Hi, Adam.
Hi. I just had a question for the board and anyone else who's on the call, just about the challenges we face with lack of engagement amongst owners, and wanted to see if anyone, does anyone have any thoughts or ideas as to how we can increase that engagement and enthusiasm amongst our owner base?
Yeah, for me in particular, as you saw in one of our earlier slides, like all of our committee chairs are pretty much vacant, and I think getting someone into the outreach slot is going to be the first step to take, because we just need someone who's giving consistent attention to having outreach meetings, liaising between the board and the outreach team to plan events. So I think that's the first step. And I think that that will go hand in hand with the volunteer event that we have coming up, the volunteer interest event. But certainly, Jessica, who's working on that, can't plan everything single-handedly. So that's why we really need to get the committee sort of populated again. So for me, that would be the first step. But in terms of specific events or tactics that the outreach team could do, I'm certainly all ears, especially if people have more experience. I'm more of a construction background, so my background isn't necessarily drumming up enthusiasm from volunteers, but I know we have a few people that are good at that. So yeah, if anybody has a suggestion, feel free to bring it up now, or again, the email would be great as well. Thank you for that question, Adam. And if you have a suggestion as well, you're free to shout that out.
I think your mention of that first step being someone in that outreach role is huge. Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Definitely. The good news is that one of our newest board members, Natalie, has really expressed interest in that arena somewhat. And because this is just her first month on, we haven't been able to sort of understand from her, like if she's willing to take that on or what extent of involvement she wants to have. But I did get some positive vibes about outreach from Natalie. So I certainly hope that we can report back that she brings some ideas and potentially can help with that. So I'm certainly don't want to told her that she's going to be doing that, but just based on what we've talked to her about, it seems like she'll definitely be contributing and adding to that in some way. So that's good news. She's nodding. Thumbs up. Okay. Before I move on to Hannah, does anyone have anything else like in the outreach / volunteering vein to answer Adam's question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Karen put a question in the chat. Is there any structure in place for volunteers to help at the farmers market booth?
I will answer that. I took that over last farmers market season from Lily, who was our previous volunteer. She has a really, really great like farmers market handbook and manual, whole procedure, how to set up the booth, everything. Unfortunately, since I've stepped into the president position, like I don't think that I can personally also manage the booth. So that would kind of fall under the umbrella of outreach. And typically we have had a owner volunteer who has kind of spearheaded, not necessarily being there in person every weekend, but making sure that someone is signed up for the various farmers market dates and making sure that they have everything they need. So that is definitely a need that we are looking to have filled. You know, getting the exposure and getting owners to sign up is definitely important for us. So, you know, Kathy, to answer your question, I hope that we can have that framework put in place. We have all the information, we have the processes, we have the equipment. It's just a matter of the volunteer power, the manpower to make that happen. So I'm hoping we can give a positive update on that. And if anyone here is interested in doing that, for sure, send us an email at volunteers@hillsborofood.coop. Hannah, you had your hand up. Would you like to ask your question?
Oh yeah, I mean, I wanted to echo, like, I think it's really important to have someone coordinating volunteers. Because just in the past, I volunteered as like social media content generator when I had the capacity to do that, and then I had to step back. And I'm hoping with job changes, I'll potentially be able to volunteer on a more regular capacity in the future. But yeah, I just wanted to like say having someone who could like steer folks who have different levels of capacity to give would be really great. So just echoing other people's encouragement of having someone chair that position. And then I just wanted to thank like the board members, and I know a lot of people who have been like stepping up for multiple years now in this group. So I just wanted to thank folks for that, because yeah, some of us have to step back, some of us have to step up, and I'm really thankful that this is still an effort that's moving forward. Hoping to be part of it again soon. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, agreed. We're definitely missing that paid position that Roberta was filling. I think she was doing a lot of volunteer coordinating, and unfortunately at this time it's not something we're able to continue, but you know, there's hope that we'll be able to do that again in the future. So yes, we are definitely feeling that void. Would anyone else like to comment or ask a question? I don't see any other hands up at the moment.
I think I would just add to Adam's, or the response to Adam's question. You know, it has been a long slog, right? The co-op board, you know, the idea of a Hillsborough Food Co-op has existed for, you know, a number of years, right? And I think there's a certain level of burnout or skepticism or what have you about, is this thing ever going to come to fruition? So, you know, as we see momentum building toward an actual store with a potential actual opening date, I think there's a lot, a lot of hope and optimism that that will result in people going, yeah, I'm ready to engage, as opposed to wait and see, right? And I don't blame anybody for wait and see, given the, the challenges that have, the amount of time that has passed and sort of the concept and to where we, where we have or haven't gotten. So that's not blaming anybody for anything. It's just, I think, understandable that we've been in a lull until the point at which we say, oh, heck, that light at the end of the tunnel is not an oncoming train, it's opportunity.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's been almost a decade, I think. And so that definitely could explain, amongst other things, like just a level of disengagement because it has been so long. So, if we could get everyone to be really excited, we could reinvigorate some volunteers, which may, kind of inject that last bit of energy that we need to cross the finish line. I think we're at that point where either that's going to happen or, and I'm not intending to be a negative Nancy here. This is really just a full transparency, honest report on what is going on. And it's that, if things remain exactly as they are now with a board that we can't even, fill all the positions for, and just single digit handful of volunteers, the organization will not survive. So, it's just who we have now is not enough people to raise the money, partnership or no partnership. So that's just something that, it's depressing and it's heavy, but I think that's a takeaway that we all have to have from this meeting. Because we are kind of reaching that point. It's like a do or die. So feel bad saying that, but
I would encourage folks also not to get too hung up on the $2.5 million figure there.
That's true.
That's a number that I think was a little more based on a standalone, we're going alone kind of approach. And there are a lot of factors at play in terms of the dollars here. If you have a developer who's going to build it, the debt service or the rent, in theory, is going to take care of itself fairly quickly, via revenue from a store. And if you have a partner, that should provide some fairly significant offset to the initial investment. So you've got the developer who's going to build the project and get repaid with rent, or another financial arrangement. And then you've got a partner who may participate in the build out of the store and the furnishing of the store and the stocking of the store. So that 2.5 could be well less than that. It's not going to be a small number. I don't want anyone to think it's small, but it may not be 2.5 million. It may be 1 million, 1.5 million. We don't know.
I think the important thing is to know, like, it's not 200, 300, 400,000. It's definitely more than that. And so it's a big number. It's a large hurdle that we are, it's going to be many hands make small work type of situation. I think where, like, the more that we can get involved, the more we'll be able to hit that number once we know what it is. But Mike is exactly right. The 2.5 is, at this point, I wouldn't call it absolutely arbitrary, but it's, it's a guess at this point. Does anyone on the board have anything else they want to say? Any, any other updates that we missed? No other questions?
Not me.
Okay. Well, looks like we've got a few more minutes until 7:30. I'll leave this on for a couple more minutes in case anyone thinks of something, but the presentation is for the most part over, so feel free to take off if you guys have busy evenings.
Maybe you want to stop recording now.
Yeah, I can stop the recording. And I just wanted to remind everyone that this was recorded. If you need to go back and watch any of it, or if you joined late, we will be posting it to our YouTube channel, and hopefully we'll be sending out a link for it as well.
And I hope it goes unsaid that, we have some board openings, and